Hello and welcome to today's Friday edition of Dwelling in the Word. Today we're going to be hearing from the Word of God in Hebrews chapter 11, and we're just going to be looking at the way the writer of Hebrews concludes this chapter by giving a summary of a bunch of people. He says, I don't have time to talk about them. He mentions a bunch of them by name, doesn't talk a whole lot about their story, but simply points out these people, like the many others I've already mentioned, lived by faith. So let's dive right in the Word of God. Hebrews 11:32 through verse 40. And what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. Others were tortured and refused to be released so that they might gain a better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, while still others were chained and put in prison. They were stoned, they were sawed in two, they were put to death by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains and in caves and in holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. God had planned something better for us so that only together with us would they be made perfect. The Word of God. Now, this closing summary that describes what living by faith looks like begins with this really triumphant tone. Victory, victory, loud and repeat it. Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets routed kingdoms through faith in God. But then there's this sudden and abrupt change in the mood. What remains does not have this victorious feel to it, not even remotely. Tortured, jeered, flogged, chained, imprisoned, sawed in two, put to death by the sword, destitute, persecuted, mistreated, all the while living in undesirable locations like deserts, caves, and holes in the ground, wearing nothing but sheepskins and goatskins. It just does not sound appealing at all. It feels like something is lacking if this is supposed to be a rallying cry and some kind of a motivational pep talk that gets us all out there living by faith. But this is an honest and real conversation about living by faith. These were God's people. These were people of incredible, deep faith. And they were all commended for their faith and their faithfulness. The world was not worthy of them, yet none of them, absolutely none of them, received what had been promised. And this line echoes the words of verse 13, where earlier the writer of Hebrews, after talking about the likes of Abraham and Sarah, Noah and Enoch and Abel, then points out that all these people were still living by faith. When they died, they did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. How? By faith they saw them, but they did not receive them in this life. We need to know that living by faith does not always mean living victoriously over our circumstances. We need to know that people who live by faith, people who can be described with these words, the world was not worthy of them. Beautiful, strong, courageous people who live by faith sometimes suffer tremendously. God has not abandoned them. God has not forsaken or forgotten them. God has planned something better for all of us so that we will all receive this together. It may not be to the same extremes, but our lives sometimes feel this way too, characterized more by apparent defeat than victory, or again, at least it feels that way. But we live by faith, not by sight. Our God is with us. Our God is always with us. Hebrews 12 will explore the themes of struggle and hardship and opposition, perseverance and discipline, and it will encourage us to consider Jesus and to fix our eyes on Him. When things get hard, when it feels like all hope is lost, do not grow weary and lose heart. Others have walked this path before us, and it turns out that we are all in this together. God had planned, and God has planned something better for us, so that only together with us would those who've walked before us, be made perfect. We, like them, are seeking a better resurrection. When Christ comes again, we will experience it together with them, and we will receive everything, absolutely everything that has been promised. God is faithful. He will not disappoint us. Don't ever give up. Hold on to your faith and persevere.